Ned is trying to join
Uh,
from her exclusion quarantine downstairs. But
do we have a
I just sent her a
quarantine
link.
office downstairs?
Yeah, she's afraid to come out.
That's handy.
Hmm.
Oh, there's someone. Pre-conference.
Yeah, that's her. Okay.
Okay.
Hi, thank you.
Okay, now I think we're
Okay.
good.
So maybe we start? Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, this is our third episode of the families. Let me start my share. So I think what we wanted to do today is sort of continue our families discussion and look at in particular the curtain wall families, which I think are kind of a very useful family, not just for curtain walls, but for all kinds of panelized systems. So we'll kind of look at different ways that we can use specific families, panel families and mullion families, and what the process is. So some of it might be kind of simple, but hopefully we'll kind of take something away. So we'll start with this family we had last week, kind of continuing using this family for continuity. So we had a nested slat basically into an array family. So what we're gonna do is take this family itself and load it into a curtain wall panel family. And I don't know if anyone's used curtain wall panels before, but essentially the out of the box Revit has pretty simple panel families, right? They're either glass or you can change the materiality of it, but doesn't give you a lot of options in terms of customizing it. So I'm gonna start. Actually, I already started a family here. So and I'll go through here just to when you create a new family and you search for curtain wall panel. So this is the curtain wall panel family, which opens up basically a family that has 4 reference planes. So these reference planes will align to grid lines in your curtain wall when you load this into a curtain wall family. So this will create a panel that's defined by those curtain wall lines. And I'm going to take our array family and load it into this family here. So once this loads in, we can kind of place it. These are components. So this has an X through it, but I'm going to place it on a work plane, which is the basically the front of the curtain panel. So if you remember from last week, the way we lock this to the family itself. Actually, I'll just use the drag points. So you want to lock panel to these edges.
So that's kind of a constant gotcha, is that cross through that won't let you place it because you have the wrong mode selected at the top for anybody that wants to try this.
Right.
That's a good place to look when you get something that you can't put in there, but you think you should be able to.
since there's no planes like this little diagram shows, you can't place it anywhere, right? The family is empty, so you want to pick a work plane to be able to set that. So now we have our panel set, and you know when we move our grid lines, which are these points, the panel will adapt to the size of the kern wall, right? So we've just kind of linked that family in, and to give it more usability, this family itself had a pull it over, had a spacing for the slats, right? But to control that within the panel family, once we load it into the panel family, we need to link this into another parameter that we create in this family. So it starts to become kind of stacked on top of each other, but and I had already created this parameter here, which is just going to link the parameter from the family we linked into a new. So now when this is here, we can just keep popping up in the wrongs. We can open our parameters, and if we change this here, it'll change the nested family. So that gives us control over any parameters that are within the family that we've nested into the new family. Does that make sense?
And it might be clear for everyone, but the parameter Max used to link to the other one was the same type of parameter, so like a dimensional one for a dimensional one and so on.
Yeah, and I think when you're in here and you want to link a parameter to associate family parameter, and you go in here and create one, it usually gives you the correct parameter type.
Like so for this one, it's all grayed out as far as the type, so that it's the same thing.
Exactly. So you would just create it in here, and then you could control the profile depth and profile width of that family within this panel family. We're just going to link one for now. And then similarly with materials, it's the same thing. So if I select this family and we go into the material properties here, this was created within that family, and if we wanted to control that, we'd have to create a new parameter within this family, the panel family. Kind of, we have very so I'm gonna now take this panel family, which I've already saved, and I'm gonna load it into our project file, basically. And this is a simplified project family, but so you can see we have kind of a typical curtain wall family in here. And I'm gonna select all these panels. And basically we can go up here and we'll find the panel that we just created. And it'll swap all those out. So you can see how these start to line up to the grid lines, you know, panel to panel. And as we can create new types just based on the spacing between panels. So this has a 12-foot overlap or spacing, and you can kind of see that it starts to change the different panels. So within that same family type, we can create a lot of different parameters that will adapt that family to the curtain wall. So I'm gonna go back to that family and use some of these reference planes that I created in here. So these are essentially offsetting our panel family from the grid lines spacing. So I'm going to remove the constraints and reconstrain them to this overlap that I created. I'll show this too. So now that panel is kind of constrained to this overlap, which is going to just use the grid lines basically of the family, and you can see how some of these panels start to overlap. So our grid lines, I'm gonna try to highlight one. Grid lines right there. But the panel overlap is basically taking that panel and extending it the distance that we gave it. So I'm gonna select this panel. You can see the panel overlap is 6 inches here. This one down here is longer, 2 feet. So you can see how we can kind of start to control how far we want to use the panels, and you can use this same concept to create reveals between panels, right? Rather than overlap. So I'm gonna go in here and do something. This might get pretty mad. So now the overlap is really a reveal since I moved it over. And I screwed up just because I did it the wrong way. But you can kind of see how you could create reveals rather than overlaps within a panel family. So I'm gonna undo that for now. And then so within the same panel family, then we can start to add you know, either mullions or other kind of elements to create more complexity within the panel. I'm just going to create some quick extrusion here that's going to represent some rods or a connection between these panels.
So why would you do a mullion in the family rather than a curtain wall?
Thanks for asking, Mike. So there's a lot of reasons that you might want to do that, and we'll look at some examples in a little bit. But you can kind of see that, you know, you can start to add a lot of complexity in the panel itself, and this gives you, I think, a lot of flexibility in how you modify the panel, and simplicity of just modifying a single family to create something like this. The other reason may be, and I'm going to go to this PRCA example that Mike Gorham worked on. So I think the trick here was that the team was using a wood curtain wall, which has kind of a wood mullion, right? But the face, the cap, is made out of a different material. It's aluminum. So within Revit, you can't really create a double material mullion. So one way to get that to work was to place the mullions within the panel family itself. And I'll edit this family just to look at it more closely. But you can see it has the vertical mullions out of wood and the glass panel, and the horizontal mullions are a different size, so that they're all built in within the panel itself. It's just missing the the cap on the exterior. So the cap is an actual mullion family within the model. So that changes the material, and you can get, you know, different material types. I mean, the metal cap could have also been built into this family itself, so that you didn't need to do it the other way. But that's a good way to kind of start to get more complex panels within the family. And when we look at the mullion family in a little bit, we'll talk about how these panels start to trim to each other, and how the mullions start to offset the trims. But that's one handy kind of way to, you know, create more complex kind of families. So that this starts to kind of give you a lot of options to work on sunshades, to create more complex glazing panels. We've used curtain panel families to create kind of panelized metal walls, right? So this is basically using an AEP span system. So this is a custom curtain panel. I'll go into the panel family itself just to look at it really quick. So it's an AEP span, which has, you know, 3 different profiles, and you can see them in here. They're kind of overlapping, so it's hard to tell which one's what. But basically, these all have visibility parameters applied to each panel, and then each panel type here turns on that visibility for the panel. So you have a FX30, FX40, and this is a simple way to create visibility parameters. So it all stays within the same family. When you go back, you know, into your family, then you can select which family panel you want to do. So this is essentially a curtain wall with 1 foot grid spacings, right? So they all stay in module. But you can vary the paneling, you know, randomly or with a pattern. So this is a pretty powerful kind of way to use curtain walls, curtain panels, to show that kind of level of detail. And again, adding, you know, mullions or things like this to show, I think, you know, in our projects, a lot of systems are panelized essentially. So this is a great way to do it. And the other thing you.
Okay, Ben. I was just going to say, we got a question, it looks like from Netta. And we could always go back to it later if it's too off topic, but about she uses all exterior walls as curtain walls with the flexibility being nice, and any suggestions on tagging when that occurs?
All exterior walls, even your solid walls, are curtain wall?
Yeah, so it's probably wrong, but I think it's so much easier because like you can you're basically filling your panels with exterior. But then the thing that I struggle with is when it comes to like, now we need to tag wall types, or we need to tag like the different openings as different, you know, exterior opening types and all of that. It keeps tagging it all as the same one, but I way prefer to build my exterior walls as a curtain wall, because to me it's just so much cleaner. Like I don't ever want to go back to building them as separate pieces.
Interesting. So you mean that even your solid, like a brick wall, would be inside a curtain panel family?
That's how I've been building, but I struggle with transition to documentation.
Yeah, it does become kind of challenging to tag these. But yeah, like you said, if I select this, I can place, you know, a typical kind of basic wall family within that panel, right? And
Yeah.
you could even, add windows to those.
Yeah, what I
Right,
like
it's-
about it too is like I can control, it's actually really nice for dimensioning and controlling like when you have brick to window to whatever, like
Mhm.
spacing between the, like it really does go down to the level of detail that you could be looking at for dimensioning like elevations, but I don't know what to do with the tags. I haven't been able to figure it out.
Yeah.
You can tag panels and not walls.
As a wall, though, I mean, I think you'd want to be able
I'm
to
not sure what
tag,
parameters it looks for, but
right?
because we don't
Like whether
we
you
don't
need
usually
like
load
a
those.
panel tag.
Yeah, you can select.
Yeah,
a,
you could
you can
tell,
tab to the panel itself, and
right?
Yeah, but like when you have an exterior elevation
Mhm.
and you go to tag the type, it tags it all. I don't know, maybe I'm doing it wrong, but it tags it all as the same
right, you got to
panel.
try and tag to the panel that you want. Yeah,
And
it'll want to select the wall, right? Because it's a wall tag.
It'll select, the
the
curtain
whole wall.
wall first, yeah. But you can, I think, tab through the panel types themselves.
Yeah.
But I think
don't-
you'd have to maybe create some custom tags so that they relate back to your wall types.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we
'cause
don't.
it
It doesn't
doesn't-
come with the. We don't come. The template doesn't come with a
Right.
panel tag, but I can certainly now that I know it's used, I can put one in there.
Uh-huh.
I would like that. I don't know if anyone else would, but I
So when you put panels, when you fill your panels with walls, do you put walls in them?
yeah.
You put walls. So we'd want to pull a wall type out of it with our tag.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So there's no curtain
Yeah.
panel tag load in here, but you could do that and it will tag windows and things like that. So yeah, I think yeah, if your project kind of benefits from doing that in terms of, be able to control things easier, I think that's a great way to do it. Usually if I'm doing something like this where this is a panelized system, I'll just create this as a curtain wall and then basically add it to a backing wall, right? That's just a typical kind of exterior assembly.
I think Kirsten has some questions too. Sorry, you're probably not seeing the chat.
Oh, there it is. I have a few. Go ahead,
I
Kirst.
do. Yeah, thank you. So you used an array family for the wood grill, and then loaded it into your curtain wall family.
Yeah.
And so what if I wanted to do a kind of a vertical grill combined with this? Would that be a different array that you load in, or how would I do it?
No, no. You probably
Would be the same?
you could probably use the same one. I mean, you'd have
Okay.
to. We can do it right now, but you would have to, I guess, change some of the parameters, right? So that your spacing and the size of your grid would work the way you want them to.
Okay.
But essentially, you could use the same family, right?
Okay. You could do it all within. Okay.
Yeah, I think.
And
Yeah,
then
just making sure that
okay.
your spacing and everything in plan
Then
kind of
it'd be
works out.
similar to what Max you were doing for the AEP span, where you'd have a visibility parameter for each version. So vertical visible or horizontal visible.
Yep, I think Kirsten is asking if you want to see both, like a
Yeah, if
backing
you're doing,
system,
if you're doing
like something like this, right?
correct. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, you can definitely do that. And the other thing you could do is you could load, you could build the these arrays within the panel family. Right now we're nesting it just because for continuity of families, but you know, you could start to do that. And then you would adjust the sizing, you know,
Mhm.
of all your members and stuff like that.
Okay.
But yeah,
And then the metal panel family that you built, that's not an array, right?
this is not an array. They're just
Okay.
extruded panels,
Okay.
right? So they just have a shape and plan and they're just extruded up basically.
Okay.
And the other thing you can use these for is not just vertical walls, but you can use the sloped roof here. So they'll work horizontally too.
The
So if
ceilings.
you're
Yeah.
looking at ceilings or
Nice.
you know, floors or anything like that, do not apply a slope because it doesn't like that. But if they're just flat, then you know, you can select those panels and use one of your slats. I don't know where it went, but so it works on all it works horizontally and vertical kind of curtain walls, which is pretty handy again for ceilings and all kinds of stuff.
Great. Thank you.
So and then the other thing we were going to talk about real quick is how to create custom mullions, right? So the standard, I kind of made a mess of that family. The standard mullions in the Revit projects are usually, you know, rectangular shapes. But if you want to create a more custom shape, you can do that. So I'll go through kind of the way to create that, and you want to start a new family type and look for a profile family. So you can look for profile mullion. Open this up. So essentially the template kind of shows you where the interior and exterior sides are of the center line and the center of the mullion. And you essentially just draw your profile in here. And we'll do something kind of quick for now, but let's say you want a channel or something like that. And I'm not gonna lock these in. But how this is gonna work is the center line here, front back reference plane. So this is where the curtain panels will trim to. So if your profile is intersecting that plane, basically the panel family is going to trim to that location right there. If I move this back here, the panel family will trim to this point since it's not intersecting that mullion at all. So that's a good way to control how far you know, the panels trim to. And if you wanted to say create like a an SSG mullion, a structural silicone mullion, then you create kind of your 1/2 inch reveal here for the panels to trim to, and then your larger mullions in the back. So the panels will trim to those edges, if that makes sense. So I'm going to save this real quick.
And this goes back to, I think, your example too, Max, about having the panel overlap. So if you do want part of it to trim to that mullion, you can still have the rest of it extend beyond. So like the PRCA curtain wall, the mullion, the wood part extended beyond so it could sit behind the snap cap.
Right. Yeah. So I'm going to load this into our project, basically. So it's within this project now, but we don't really have a mullion family yet. So what we need to do is usually kind of select an existing mullion family, and we can edit the type and duplicate it. So we're going to duplicate this family. And I just named it channel. And then to use that profile that we just loaded, we go into here. This is profile, and we'll look for that channel that we created. So this is going to essentially change that family to the, we can't really see it because it's facing the other way, but you can kind of see there's your channel family right there. So that's essentially how you create a custom mullion. So I think this is a good tool to use if you know, if you have a shape that is not typical. But essentially, it's pretty simple to just create custom ones. And then all the materials and everything are controlled from within the family type itself, not the profile of the mullion. So the material will just get changed here within the family inside the project. So I think that sort of covers most of what we wanted to talk about. I think next time we'll deep dive into materials and things like that for families, but maybe we won't get too deep into that now. I'll show another kind of handy way to use. Oh yeah. So this is another simple way to use these panel families. If you have a curtain wall, let's say with like a back pan, a shadow box basically, and you want to have two surfaces with different materials. So similar to the mullion, this is a clear glass pane and then an offset plane that's a metal back pan or something like that. So you would see kind of a depth to that panel when you load it into your families. It's just a simple way to create those types of family panel, and you could add a parameter here for how far you want to backset those to control it in the family itself. I don't know if I have much more. Mike, do you have anything else you want to cover?
I was just looking at I was looking for our little outline and I haven't found it yet.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I have it open.
I mean, after all of this, after these three sessions on families, can you reiterate one more time how to change the material of an element? Because I mean, that's one of the things that comes into play most often when you have to deal with a family.
Yeah. So
either it's forgotten to be done, or you don't know how to, you want to do it yourself. But
yeah. So if you just apply a material to a family, typically when you load it into a project, that material will come into the project, right? But you won't be able to control it within the family type. So usually you want to make a parameter for that. So this family that we linked in here has a trim material, right? And if we want to control it in the family, sorry, I'm going to edit this family. So in here we had that that parameter, right? We created a material parameter and we gave it a material within this family. But once you load it into the project, which is really our material panel, right? You can control that within the types. So I could change it here. Go into this, whoops. Go into that box and you can assign it any of the materials that are in your project. So that's sort of how, you know, you can control the and then when I load this into, if I want to if I'm going to load this back into the project, I'd have to create a secondary parameter, right, to control that within the panel itself. But usually you don't have this many kind of stacks of nested families, so you wouldn't need to do that. Is that kind of clear or no?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay.
I think so.
So like, yeah. So I typically assign, you know, material parameters to all the components in the family, just because once it's in the project, it's a lot easier to control and change.
I guess one way to think about it is the parameters only give you one way to speak to it from a single level up. So if it's nested into another family, you can control it from that family. But as soon as it's then brought into the next environment, like another nested family or the project, you just need another parameter to tell it what to do. So each level down, it basically plays telephone and tells the next one down what the material is, or the parameter, what it is.
Yeah, and if you had a parameter, you could, you know, you can start to create, duplicate families that have a different material type. So that's another way to use it if it's a link to a parameter itself. So I could have, you know, slats that are a certain type of wood, and then others that are a different material within that same family type. I'll show a quick example again of how you might want to, like this was a, you know, a channel mullion family. But if you've ever tried to do this in a project, you know that this joint connection wouldn't really work this way, because you'd have either a horizontal or a vertical break in that. So really to get this to work, you'd really want to build in that mullion within the panel family itself so that they start to join in this way once you join all the panels together. So you could build half of the mullion into the panel or the full mullion and then control it with visibility parameters, kind of like what Mike did with these panels. So I think all these mullions, right, Mike, have a visibility parameter so that if they're let's say at the end of a panel, or you have an angled end to one, you could turn off one side or the other.
They're set up, but it might be that way, but it's also, I think, the depth of the horizontals and verticals are treated separately as well.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then I guess I'd ask the general group if there's any questions that you have about families that we just haven't hit on yet. You know, like we tried to cover it from the pure basics of just kind of creating the skeleton with the reference planes, the dimensions, working our way up from just a simple rectangle to a more complex array to then, a very complex system family, and how you can use those same techniques to create such a variety of features for the building. So if there's anything we've missed that you want to go into more depth, we could in the time remaining, or just we can keep it in mind for future presentations.
Yeah, I mean, I think the curtain families, I don't know. I think in our project we have a lot of different ways that we're using them, and they're just super handy. From ceilings to panels to metal cladding.
Yeah, once you get the concept, you stop thinking of it as a curtain wall
Yeah.
and just as sort of this generic element that you can put into your model.
Yeah, and if you have like a panelized system, like wood panels, you can build a lot of, you can build reveals within that panel itself, so that you don't have to control that in any other way with reveals and things like that.
And that's such a good point about all the elements. Like Revit obviously has maybe a suggested way, like use a roof for a roof, but when you think about it, you have the roof that then has the ability to have a fascia. Like, what can you use the fascia for? Maybe you're not just using it as like a panel or a piece of wood. Maybe you're making sidewalks out of it and using it for like the curb assembly. There's so many different ways to start to think about these elements, and just kind of understanding what comes in the package of each system family type and how you can use it to get what you were trying to do, get it across visually.
Mike and Max, can I make a suggestion for future lessons?
Yes.
Can we have something on site modeling?
Yeah.
It's just,
I think everyone has a hard time with site modeling.
yeah,
But
it's
yes,
just,
we
or
need
maybe
to-
like tips and tricks to how people have worked around certain things, like I know it's limiting in Revit, but maybe we have ways in which we've like, this is a good way to model it. Like Max, the trick you told me with the, building a floor and messing with elevations, like that helped a lot, right? Like things like that.
Yeah, that could be a good topic for next time.
I think there's even the whole site tab that we could brush up on a little bit as well.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Yeah, that was awesome, Max. Thank you.
Yeah, and if we have a little handout that we'll save into the folder that kind of covers what we talked about today, and we have the video. So.
All right. Well, thanks everyone. Well done, Max.
Oh, we do have an Upsys
Oh.
YouTube channel. Paulina,
We do.
you're really
Sorry,
asking.
I was on mute, but you can just hear me because I'm behind him.
You're But yeah, were you joking about that? Or?
No, I wasn't joking about it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we do
should
have.
upload these.
Yeah, we do have that.
So then late at night when you're like thinking about curtain walls and you sit down at your computer and you're like, oh, I really want to get this going. You fire up your YouTube and you settle in and nobody else is laughing, but thank you.
Okay.
Okay, bye. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.